Before I start, I would like to introduce our two special speakers today who will also be doing the Acknowledgement of Country. So today we have with us Professor Mark Rose. He is in Augal previously for Indigenous Strategy and Innovation for Deakin University, and he's previously worked at a number of other universities, including La Trobe and RMIT, which is where I'm from at the moment. He's traditionally linked to the Gunditjmara Nation of Western Victoria. He's got over 30 years of career experience in education. He's contributed to a range of educational settings within the state, nationally and internationally. And he's also was a member of the 2018 AAUT Teaching Awards Committee assessment panel. So welcome, Mark. And we have joining Mark, Professor Susan Page. She's an Aboriginal scholar with over 25 years in higher education. In 2018, she led the Centre for the Advancement of Indigenous Knowledges at UTS and was awarded the Neville Bonner Award for Teaching Excellence in 2018. She's recently about to join Western Sydney University as the Director of Indigenous Learning and Teaching. So Mark and Susan, I would like you guys to give the Acknowledgement of Country. Over to you, Mark.
Ange, thank you for that, and welcome everyone. In this virtual and distributed world, it reminds us that wherever we are, we're on Aboriginal land, and what I'd like to do is acknowledge my heritage, a Gunditjmara man that lived most of his life on other countries here in Victoria. So I pay respect to where I am at the moment, which is on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, but also acknowledge that we're in a postmodernist world. And I would like to recall, while this award is named after Neville Bonner, who is a very worthy person to name the award after, my career has sort of tracked the rise of the Black Academy. As a young person, I learnt a lot from people like Japanaka, Errol West, Colin Burke, Kay Price. So I want to recognise those people, brave warriors that sat around the tables at the NAEC back in the late 70s, early 80s, who crafted a plan that we all are the recipient and beneficiaries of. That's my acknowledgement. I'm going to pass over to my distinguished colleague, Susan.
Thank you, Mark. You're too much. Susan Page, I'm here on Gadigal land, the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past and present. I think it's worth noting, although we're in a city, it's easy to think that the lands are overwritten and overrun. But in fact, at the bottom of my street, not very far from the bottom of my street, is an old an area where Aboriginal people used to gather. It was a water source just down at the bottom of the street. Now it's cemented over and got buildings and things on it now. But nevertheless, we know that down at just near that little place in built-up Marrickville, there was a place where Aboriginal people gathered. If I, in my better days, my younger days, I could run the 2 or 3 kilometres it would take me to get down to Blackwattle Bay, another site where women would gather the reeds and the rushes around the bay. If I go on the bus down to UTS, for example, which I'm not doing anymore, but when I was, you go right past what is now Victoria Park, but used to be a corroboree site. And interestingly enough, now on that site, the Yabun Festival's held every year. So in a kind of cyclical way, that land has been reclaimed for Aboriginal people. So I want to just kick off and say, yes, that I'm on Gadigal land, and I'm sure other people are on various lands, and pay my respects to everybody's country. And so glad to see so many people here. There are people here that I know really well, and I'm dying to have a little chat to, I won't right now, but it's great to see so many people here. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan, and thanks, Mark. Thank you for that great acknowledgement to country. To organise something like this, there's a small team that's been working with me to organise these sorts of sessions, as well as put together all the awards packs. I'd like to introduce Angeline Sim. So you would have met her at the start, giving us the housekeeping information at the start of the session, and also Jinyi, who's also driving the slides and has been instrumental in helping us put together all the information for the awards. So thanks, Angeline and Jinny. What I'd like to do today is just briefly touch on a few things about the Neville Bonner Award and then move straight into interviewing our two special guests that I've just introduced. All the information about all the awards is held on the Universities Australia webpage. And what I did want to point out is in the past, we've had a really low number of applicants for the Neville Bonner Award. You can see in 2018, there was 2 nominations for the Teaching Award and none for the Citations Award. There was none in 2019 and there's very few in 2020. And we are so pleased that this year, by us reaching out to the PBCs, having a session specifically with the PBCs, asking them and their DVCs to nominate people that could be potentially mentored and helped to put together an application for the Neville Bonner Award. We've now got 28 names of potential applicants from across 18 institutions. So that is a huge jump just by us being a little bit more proactive and really tapping people on the shoulders and assisting them through the process. And what a shame that the government is not going to fund the program going forward after we've made all these great initiatives this year going forward. So this is a year that I think it's worthwhile to put in applications. And look, we see governments change and rethink their budgets, so you just never know what might come around the corner. And I know the DVCs are actively looking for sponsorship going forward. This is a slide that just captures some of the past recipients and all the great work that they've done in the past. This slide, it's all Teaching Excellence Award and 1 citation from last year. So I think it's worthwhile reaching out to these people if you haven't already done so. We've got their names there. We'll be sharing these slides and having a look at some of the great work that they've done in the past. So the Neville Bonner Award was introduced in 2002. And it was named after the first Indigenous Australian to sit in Parliament, and he was an elder of the Jagera people. He was an Indigenous activist and a political conservatist, and his contribution in Australia has been recognised, and that's through the naming of this award. This award, we've broken it up into 2 categories, so you could apply for a Neville Bonner Award as a Teaching Excellence Award, or you could apply as a citation. This year we've changed the type of nominees, and they must be Indigenous teaching staff. So it's specifically for Indigenous teaching staff, and they have to demonstrate their contribution to Indigenous education. So as I said, there's 2 categories of awards that you can apply for a Neville Bonner Award. There's the citations and there's the teaching awards. So with the citations, you select one of the discipline categories that are there, whether it's engineering, education, health. Choose one of the discipline categories and then you select the nomination category, whether you are early career or whether you're applying for a Neville Bonner or whether you're a sessional staff. And similarly for the Teaching Excellence Awards, but that's not available for sessional staff. 2 categories are citations and teaching awards. Citations, you select 1 criteria from the list of 4 that are there, but for a teaching award, you have to address all 4 criteria. So when you go and start to develop your application, look at these criteria. You might want to work with a mentor to help you to develop your responses, and you may even want to ask some questions to our guest speakers today. All right, and then finally, just quickly go through the assessment process. This year, for the first time, we will be setting up an Indigenous assessment panel, and we'll be inviting people or academics, people that are renowned in the higher education sector, to be part of the assessment panel that have come from Indigenous backgrounds, and we'll also have an Indigenous committee to look at the citations and the teaching awards. The assessment is a 3-phase process. In the first phase, when we have our assessment team set up, each assessor individually assesses the application. Once they've done their individual assessment, we bring them together and we do a collaborative assessment. This is where they can explain their rationale for why they've assessed one application in the way that they have, and they may want to change their assessment after their discussion. The assessment panel then makes recommendations to the awards committee. The awards committee then looks at the recommendation of the assessment panel. They might change the recommendations, or they might leave them the same, and then they make recommendations to Universities Australia Board, and then it's the board that approves the awards going forward. So we've got Mark here, who has been a member of the awards committee, and we've got Susan, who's been part of the assessment panel. So we get to hear insights from both of our distinguished speakers today. And now we would like to start to interview our lovely, or open it up for questions to our lovely guests. I'm going to start with Mark today. The first questions are to Mark. So Mark, you're currently a PVC Indigenous, so you would have received an email asking you to nominate some Indigenous academics for this award. So why would you encourage Indigenous academics to apply for such an award?
Oh, look, there's a dozen reasons, Ange, that I think there are personal and professional reasons, but there are also community and sector reasons why we need to, encourage our mob to apply. If we claim that we're the oldest living culture, we must, by association, be the oldest living intellectual tradition. It might be a bit of a stretch in some people's minds, but because of the Aborigines Protection Act, there was dark ages where a lot of our elders could not go to school beyond year 8, and since the late 60s, the 70s, and it was about the 80s that blackfellas started to come to universities. And in that time, we've punched way above our weight in our academic contributions to the academy and to our people. And quote the great Peter Buckskin, we need to glow in the dark to show that we are there. We work well in both intellectual traditions, in ours and in the West, that we code switch and make contributions. So individually, a award like this helps your career. That's fine. But we know that we are in these positions more than just a career path. We're there to, I guess, create a jet stream for our mob to follow us. And you can't be what you can't see. So I used to be shamed using the doctor title because of the PhD, because I know so many people worthy to carry that title in my community never had the education chances that I had. But I get buoyed when the mob uses that title or the professorial title. It shows how chuffed they are and how pleased they are to see it. So personally, community and sector-wise, apply for this award and use it strategically and tactically to lift our mob.
What a brilliant response, Mark, because it goes beyond just individual intrinsic satisfaction. It's, it has a broader meaning for the Indigenous community, this award. Susan, I'm going to ask a question over to you now and ask you, why did you apply for the award in 2018?
Thanks, Angela. So I just want to echo what Mark says. I think these awards are actually never really just for ourselves. But why did I apply? Well, look, a couple of reasons. Someone in my institution tapped me on the shoulder to apply in the 2018 round. I hadn't been thinking about it at the time because I didn't actually think we were eligible. Not that I didn't think we were doing good work, because I know we were, but in our team at CAIK. But I wasn't sure we were eligible. So someone tapped me on the shoulder. But I will have to say that I got Learning and Teaching Awards many years ago at the beginning of my career at University of Sydney. And in fact, the team I was working with then applied for the Neville Bonner twice, and we failed spectacularly. So I have to say that when I was tapped on the shoulder and someone said, I thought, yes, I want to get this damn thing. Sorry. So I was a bit keen, and so look, I think for me, learning and teaching is my thing. It's the thing I really value. It's what I love. I know that we do loads of really good work as Indigenous staff, and so I think yeah, it's about having that work recognised, getting, as Mark said, having a glow in the dark shine, getting some recognition for it, getting some visibility for it. I would swear all of the people who are in this room now do loads of great work that's, just happening and nobody really notices it. It's really critical, important work. Right now, all universities are trying to indigenise their curriculum. Guess who is doing that work under often quite difficult circumstances? So I mean, just reward as well, I think. So.
Oh, that's fantastic. Susan, I'm going to stay with you for the moment and just ask you got the award in 2018. What do you think are the benefits of winning such an award or being a recipient of such an award?
I kind of struggled with this one. Look, I guess the really obvious benefits are, I think we've applied for ARC grants since we got the award. You can stick it on your grant applications. There's that little box that says what awards have you won. Well, I haven't actually won that many awards, but this one can keep going there. So in a way, it is a gift that keeps on giving in that way. Not that I've had it for that long, but I also think, for practically speaking, if you're going for promotion, it's a really shorthand way of saying I'm excellent in learning and teaching. You can tick off that box. That's you don't have to worry about that. I guess it probably didn't hurt in getting my new role at Western Sydney. It's hard to know what panels look for, but it can't have done any harm to have been a national award winner to get that role. And in some ways, what it really does is it builds my confidence. It helps me with my confidence and gives me a platform to talk about learning and teaching, Indigenous learning and teaching, which is, I could talk about that all day. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Mark captured, what an award means to the whole Indigenous community. It's an opportunity for the whole community to glow in the dark. And as Mark spoke about Indigenous knowledge, you've got so much knowledge there, and to be recognised for it. And now universities are looking to embed Indigenous knowledges in the curriculum, and that's across the board. They're all actively looking for, we're putting up appointments for Indigenous curriculum designers to help us embed that knowledge, because no one else really understands it as well as the First Nations people. So they've got a really important role, and I just see that we're going to start to see changes in our curriculum for the better for Australia and for the rest of the world, actually. So it's really important, and it's a shame that it's taken us so long to get to this point where we've got potential nominees from 18 different universities. Susan, still focusing on you at the moment, and I want to move into the process for developing and writing an award application. And I wanted to get a sense of how you went about preparing for an application, because I know a lot of the listeners are thinking about, preparing for the application. So how did you go about that?
Look, it's the same as anything, isn't it? You leave yourself plenty of time. An application, I didn't. I can remember spending a number of weekends writing the application. I think I was supposed to be giving a conference presentation. I was still writing that plus this application at the same time, but don't listen to me on that. So give yourself plenty of time. We really thought hard about, what's going to go in the application. I think we had help from our Learning and Teaching Centre. So the person who had tapped me on the shoulder was somebody I'd been working with on Indigenous curriculum matters in the university and who worked in the Learning and Teaching Centre. So those people, this is their bread and butter. Every year they help applicants write these applications. So that was really helpful. They knew the kinds of, the ways that it's a genre, like other things, it's a genre. You need to kind of get what that is. That's probably enough about how, just leaving plenty of time, giving time for readers. Things like referees, there's a bunch of things that need to be done. So letting referees know that kind of thing in advance.
Mark, what advice would you give to these potential applicants in terms of preparing for the application? Could you share any advice, being on the assessment committee?
Just to lead on we're often doing 2 or 3 things at once. I like Sue's comment about find time to put real time into it. But also, as blackfellas, we hate styling up. I know some do, but we do. It's nothing more frustrating, Ange, to sit across an interview table and someone gets asked a probing question and the Aboriginal aspirant for that position sells himself short. And it's a bit, it's cultural. Just learn to style up a bit and learn to capture the narrative. That's I think most the important thing, and link it into the things that drive the values behind Aboriginal education holistically, the sense of community and the sense. And if you can grab the narrative and twist it, like the national curriculum, I chair the Indigenous Advisory Committee at ACARA, and everyone wrote that off as being politically correct or pandering to a minority. And we twisted a narrative on its head and said that every kid, black and white, will be living in a world where there are competing worldviews, and our knowledge allows the kids to develop that skill of dealing with competing worldviews and anchor themselves in. That narrative has opened the door for a whole lot of more narrative. So it's how you control the narrative, how you see it, and don't be frightened to style up. And I'll put a list of blackfellas who aren't frightened to style up if you want tutorial or assistance on that. There should be ab study around styling up, eh?
I love that. Mark. So, Susan, back to you. Having gone through the process of preparing for an application, submitting it and being successful, what are some of the tips, the writing tips that you would give potential applicants?
Following on from Mark, I think you're right. It's really hard some of us have a lot of trouble selling ourselves. Some of us are good at it. If you can find someone who's better at that, if you're not so good at it, then get them to have a look at it, because, I'll just use the example. I've met with my mentee already. That person was very tentative, not sure, didn't think they had enough material. By the time we'd finished talking, it was really clear they had plenty of material. So I guess that leads me to my other point, is really thinking through what is your application going to be based on. Internal university applications are often based on a single subject or a single thing that you do. I think probably at this level, at sort of national level, that you can afford to draw on some of those other things that you do. This might be the opportunity where all that service that you, no doubt all of you do, where some of that service comes into account. So for example, in our award, we did rely on some of our teaching. So we had a big online subject that we developed that had good student feedback, etc. We developed a whole set of resources to go with that. So we used that teaching, but we also drew on the work we were doing in the postgraduate space in building a HDR cohort and the kinds of work that we were doing with the HDR cohort. Things like writing retreats, building up publications for students, that sort of thing. So, and of course our scholarship. So that's probably for our team. That was one of the things that we were pretty strong on. But I know just from the people I know in the room now that there are others who are well and truly doing good scholarship that could feed into their applications. It's really thinking through all of the things that you're doing, not just kind of thinking, I don't think I've got enough, because I don't know everybody, but certainly the people I know here have definitely got plenty of things that to bring into an application.
So I think, Susan, when you've got a lot of things, that you're doing a lot of things, I think Mark touched on a really key point, and that is, what is your narrative? So you're doing all these things and they can't come across as disparate, sort of not connected. They've got to lead to that narrative that Mark was talking about. Yeah,
so I think you're right. And look, that's the sort of teaching philosophy thing. And again, I'm sure that everyone's probably got some values that drive their teaching. It's a story. It's a particular genre of writing, and it is getting that story straight and getting your particular narrative, and then threading that through the application. We did use our Learning and Teaching Centre. People were really helpful for some very practical things, like gathering up the student feedback, your whatever you call them at your institution, but your student evaluations. Our Learning and Teaching Centre were able to pull those together for us in such a way that won't say it shone the best light on us, but they were able to pull that together in a nice, neat table. That saved me a lot of time. I don't know whether I could have pulled that off in the way that they did. So that was really helpful. We used a range of sources of evidence. So yes, our formal student evaluations, but also, student testimonies, those kinds of things.
So Mark, as on the awards committee, what sort of evidence do you look for?
I think the fact that I look for evidence is really important. You can't make a claim unless there's evidence. And I've just sat on another awards panel at a state level into compulsory year awards. Lots of claims made, but where's the evidence? Even when people put evidence, sometimes whether it's, you can verify it, but evidence, the days of just a warm, fuzzy statement will get people entranced are gone. There's got to be evidence, and if it's a photographic evidence, of a day. Again, talk to your learning and teaching people. Make sure that in talking to them, that you don't lose the Aboriginal, the Indigenous tone and flavour to it. That's really important. I've sat on too many judging panels, and I think I'm becoming the Czechoslovakian judge, whereby unless you can make all the claims you like, but unless there's an attempt to verify it in evidence, it's just a statement.
So, Susan, you spoke about why some of the challenges you had in preparing the application, or how you went about preparing the application, and some of the tips to put the application together, and make sure you reach out to your learning and teaching crew at the university. They're really important, different forms of evidence that they might even help collate for you and put it in a form that you can use. Could you share some of the challenges that you had in putting together your application? And did you just put it together once and you were successful, or did you have many goes? Shelley Kanash gave a lovely session around, she drew an analogy between applying for a teaching award application and Legos, and with Legos, the Legos Masters TV show. And in the Lego Masters TV show, the contestants there had to build these artifacts, and they had 13 goes at rebuilding, and she drew that analogy that each time they built something, they got feedback, they took it apart, built something else, and then they got more feedback. And she said it's the same sort of thing when you're putting together an application. And I was wondering sort of the challenges, or the process that you went through in putting together that application.
I think I mentioned earlier, we failed twice at Neville Bonner, probably 20 odd years ago. Deeply wounded by that, and held that to my heart for a long time. In fact, perhaps until we won this one. I had some experience at writing applications at that period. I did apply for awards at another institution and also was spectacularly unsuccessful. I would have to say at that time, and this goes to Mark's point, I think, and of course I would because I didn't get the award, but I think the panel there failed to take into account the Indigenous aspects of our application. And again, maybe this says something about me, I was really, deeply wounded by that, and did hold that to my heart for a while as well. Something's always better when you do it a number of times. And so, although we only applied at this time once, I had quite a lot of experience in writing applications. And because it was a team application, I also had the benefit of having, my colleagues read, that sort of thing. Whereas if you're doing it yourself, sometimes you might not have enough time, or you might be, a bit worried about showing someone. I had colleagues read, I had the Learning and Teaching Centre people read. But I also, I guess, at this stage of my career, am very clear on what I value and what I know is right in this area. And so I guess I had some confidence writing this time.
And you show great resilience from going from failure the first time, failure the second time. Great resilience. So, they always say failure is the pathway to success. I got my award many years ago, but I failed 3 times just trying to get the VC's award in my institution. And I think that you treat failure not to it might knock you down and you might feel deflated, but the importance is that you've got enough energy to get back up, take it on board, think about the feedback and then address the feedback to keep moving you forward. And obviously you've got that in spades if, you've been rejected a few times and now to come through it and to offer all this advice to all these potential applicants that could go forward. So I think that's great. So when they are unsuccessful, and many of us will be unsuccessful, they will have the energy and know, well, someone's gone down this path before me and they've gotten up, they've tried again and they were successful. So I think, it's a great story. And I think all leaders, wherever they're in those senior positions, they've all had failures and spectacular failures, and that just gave them the energy to go further, I think. I want to move to your role as assessor before we open it up for questions. Susan, you were the 2020 Teaching Award Assessor. What did you look for in an application?
Well, I was pretty new, and I'd have to say, but I was looking for evidence. At that time, I was looking for, the Indigenous input not being tokened. That's not going to be an issue here, but I do, I was certainly looking for, the Indigenous leadership and not just an Indigenous person sort of stuck on an application. I look for evidence. I must admit, I'm maybe sometimes moved by the warm and fuzzy. I'm not sure. I like, it's useful to be able to see student feedback responses or, to see those nice, neat tables that have you at particular numbers. I also am interested in more qualitative kinds of evidence, I guess. I'm interested in, publications, or I'm interested in where, what work you might have done and who might have valued that, or a change that's happened in your institution because of the work that you've done that may not necessarily be quantity but is quality. Yeah, so I guess I would look for a range of evidence. I also do look for what's the story, what are your values as a teacher, what's important to you.
And Mark, over to you as a Teaching Awards Committee member. What do you look for in an application?
Very much the same as Sue said. One of the things that annoys me, and I'm easily annoyed, is when I see comments and I ask, this is part of your normal job. Where's the X factor? Where have you gone over and beyond? Where have you used your incredible intelligence and drive and initiative? And you've packaged it up in a way that's really clear and identifiable. But, the awards that I've just finished assessing in another jurisdiction, I just shook my head to say, what do you think you're getting paid for? This is your normal work. I want to see the X factor. And the mob sitting around this room at the moment, because of your heritage, because of your ancestral mandate, you've got it in bucket loads. Just put it out there, eh?
Thank you. Now, before we move into some encouraging words to give to the potential applicants, I'm going to open it up for questions by Jenny Padzika. I'm wondering if Susan and Mark could comment on the change to the team citation, where all team members, not just the lead, must be Indigenous to qualify for the Neville Bonner Award. I'd appreciate hearing your thoughts on this to help us communicate this change to our institution. So that was a change. In the past, for a Neville Bonner Award, the team didn't have to be all Indigenous. It has been made Indigenous. We did meet with the PVCs and DVCs about this, and they were the ones that suggested that was the way they would like to go. But it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts, maybe starting off with you, Mark. And
look, it's an interesting change, and there's a lot of validity in it. Because of my time in higher education, I've seen a concept which is euphemistically referred to as blackcladding, or the black handbag approach, where on submissions and quotes where they're meant to have an Aboriginal person, the Aboriginal person is there as a token. Now, and I believe this is an attempt to make sure that this doesn't happen. I haven't seen it in my time with OLT and other awards. I haven't seen it too much, but I know in submissions it has happened where there's a team of Western academics and one Aboriginal person they are doing all the work, and the Aboriginal person's getting coffee and their names on it. So we're there for the real work, and we want the real acknowledgement. So that's what I presume the logic behind it is.
Yeah, that sentiment did come across in that meeting. Susan, what are your thoughts?
I'm just trying to remember the conversation here. Yes, I think what we were looking for was opportunities for Indigenous people to shine. As I recall the conversation, it wasn't so much that the Indigenous person couldn't be working in a team with non-Indigenous people, so the work could have been done in a mixed team, but that for the application purposes, it's the Indigenous members of the team that can apply for this award. If you were thinking that you were wanting to with a whole team, then there are other citations to apply for. There are other schemes and there are other citations that could be applied for.
That does clarify. Thanks for that, Susan. Odette, Beth?
Thank you. Hi, Susan. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Odette.
Susan, when you talked about you applied for the award a number of years ago and you said that you failed spectacularly, which is pretty descriptive, did you get any feedback as to why you weren't hitting the mark in your application?
Thanks, Odette, and it's so nice to see you.
I know.
Following your work, your nursing work is just fantastic. Sorry, everyone else, but I do know Odette, and I just really did want an opportunity to say that. So we did get feedback. Look, at that time we got feedback. Yes, we did get feedback. We got feedback. I suspect there was some politics going on at the time. We always suspect that. We did get feedback. I think probably the one important piece of information that we didn't get at that time, and which I did learn over the years, was that actually it's common to need to apply a number of times. So I think in each time you apply, you get feedback on your application, you get time to build more evidence. So each time it's likely to be better just because you've got more evidence. In that interim many years, I had talked to somebody who won a Teacher of the Year award, and they were able to say that they got it on the fourth go. So kind of, had we known that, we might have just kept going. Yeah, but we didn't realise that was the thing to do. So
I think that there's always, that I don't want to use the word suspicion, but you kind of like think, oh, right, who's assessing? It's nice to know that there is a lot of Indigenous input now into the process, and that Indigenous specific stuff is now being, heralded as, needing Indigenous input into it. I think that helps.
I think at that time, without, going too far down the path, there probably weren't any Indigenous people on the panels. That would surprise me. It was 20 odd years ago. Probably Indigenous teaching probably was seen in a different light at that time as well.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
I don't know whether the feedback was just you were unsuccessful. We are, in my reign as the director, we are trying to give more constructive feedback.
Yeah.
We've got an assessment matrix, and we try to give feedback around each of the criteria of the assessment matrix, so that way if applicants do apply again, they know how to improve on their application. But even this round, know that the government's not going to sponsor these awards going forward, but, we're still looking for sponsors. Whatever feedback you get, try not to waste this time that you're spending to develop this application, but look at other opportunities that may come up. And I'm sure there will be others. We just need to find them. We haven't got them there. Mark might know of some already, but we'll work with the DVCAs to see what other opportunities will be coming forward.
Susan, you said spectacular failure and the importance of feedback. It reminded me of my first degree that I got. I was at a party all night, wrote it in a hangover state, submitted it, came back poorly structured, off the point, 3 other negatives, and the final statement of feedback, the guy wrote, and the saddest thing is a tree died for it.
Oh.
So that was spectacular feedback or failure and feedback, Susan. So, yeah.
Yes, I shouldn't say. Look, it's not failure, really.
No, it's not. No.
That's clearly about me, not.
It's what you learn from it.
Go back to Mark and Susan, ask them to give some encouraging words to potential applicants. So, Susan, what would you say to these applicants that are still haven't, thinking of applying, maybe haven't committed yet? What would you say?
Well, I'd say just do it, really. No, look, talk to your mentor. Get a sense of, I think if you think that you haven't really got enough or you're not sure, it's unlikely. It's very likely that you have got plenty, and it is just a matter of pulling that together. And maybe if you really haven't got quite enough at the moment, I think it's useful to have that conversation with your mentor, because who knows what the DBCAs will work really hard to see some kind of awards continue. There's enormous commitment in that group, and well, I'm hopeful that something will happen to continue the awards in some way, and hopefully institutions will keep their awards going. So yes, if you're not sure, absolutely talk to your mentor and have them talk you through, and really, if you think you might want to go, just do it. Have a go. Would be my suggestion.
Thanks, Susan. Mark, what are your encouraging words?
Like Susan, Nike, just do it. But in doing it, also take a moment to think about your place in the Black Academy in the sector. The work you're doing is immense, and it's worthy of it. And think about that generation before us who fought hard to kick down those, kick the black ceiling in and open those doors up. Where you guys are the next generation, the current generation and the next generation, use this opportunity to augment, our business in universities, personally and for the mob.
Thank you both, Mark and Susan, for those great encouraging words at the end. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you both for the acknowledgement of country at the start, for your insights into applying for awards, for assessing awards, awards committee, the whole awards journey, sharing your failures and your successes, and really what it means to Indigenous community, which is really, really important. So I just wanted to give you a clap. The rest can do a virtual clap. What a fantastic session. I wish you all the best in your application. I hope you found the session valuable. I know I did. I always find listening to the traditional owners of the land and the Indigenous people and their backgrounds, I always find it fascinating. So always learning something every time I hear them speak. So thank you so much, Mark and Susan. Really appreciate your time and everybody else's time. I hope you found this valuable and the session will be shared. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.